Well, today is day 168 in our journey through the Word, and we're very quickly approaching the halfway point, which is exciting to know that we're just about halfway through our journey through God's Word. It's been an exciting journey and many, many things for me to learn, for God to teach me. In my prayer that God will write those deeply in my heart for me to continue to recall and live by, as he tells us in His Word, is to write them in your heart. And that's my prayer, is that I will remember these words. Has God made a promise to you? We see again today just a focus. I focused on the word promise, and yet just my key word, just as the Lord said. My title, just as the Lord said. This fulfills the message from the Lord which He spoke through His servant Elijah in 2 Kings 9:36. Yet again, God's word is found to be true, dependable. As we read yesterday through Hebrews 11, we may not see, as we saw with Abraham and Moses and some of those characters of the faith, patriarchs of the faith, they didn't see the final outcome of God's promise, but they trusted God's word. They knew that it would happen. And that's the same with us. We can't forget that. A promise is a declaration that something will or will not be done, given. It's an expression of assurance on which expectations can be based. It's an expression of assurance on which expectations can be based. The other word I looked up today was also faithfulness. Steadfast, dedicated, dependable, and worthy of trust. It is derived from the Hebrew root having the basic meaning to trust a person or to believe a statement. And we've got to continue to remember those as we see these statements and these promises of God and His Word, that when He says it, it's going to happen. And I'm reminded that God is the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow. And the sin He hated then, He hates today. And we can't just sugarcoat over it and say, well, it's a different time. Sin is sin is sin before God. I went through and just did a search on the word promise, and there's hundreds of references to God's promises. Many of we've already read. Many of them we have not yet. Obviously not even being halfway through our reading of God's Word this year. Just Genesis 18:9, that I will do for Abraham all that I had promised. That's God's speaking directly to that. Genesis 21:1, in speaking of the birth of Isaac, the Lord kept His word and did for Sarah exactly what He had promised. 2 Samuel 7:25, and now, O Lord, I am your servant. Do as you have promised concerning me and my family. Confirm it as a promise that will last forever. And then jumping forward to even, how do you even touch? Just God's promises fulfilled throughout His Word. But Romans 4:21, he was fully convinced that God is able to do whatever He promised. Romans 9:4, they are the people of Israel, chosen to be God's adopted children. God revealed His glory to them. He made covenants with them and gave them His law. He gave them the privilege of worshiping Him and receiving His wonderful promises. I love that He gave them the privilege. He didn't have to choose Israel. but he gave them the privilege of worshiping him. In Hebrews 10:23, let us hold tightly without wavering to the hope we affirm, for God can be trusted to keep his promise. Every promise made in God's word to us in our prayer life, in our lives, in the lives of others, God will always fulfill his promise. Again, it's an expressed assurance on which expectations can be made. So when God says it, whether it be positive or a promise of discipline, we can count that it will happen. It will happen. And in today's reading, it's sad that Jehu did everything the Lord commanded, and he even killed all those who worshipped Baal. But the one thing that he did not do was destroy the golden calves. But Jehu did not obey the law of the Lord, the God of Israel, with all his heart. He refused to turn from the sins that Jeroboam had led Israel to commit. If you remember, Jeroboam built the golden calves because he didn't want his people of Israel to go to Jerusalem. He was concerned that they would leave him. Jehu, and all he did in obeying God and God fulfilling his promise to him, the one thing Jehu did not do was destroy the golden calves. God's word declares that something will always be. In God's word, when he promises, it will be. He is dependable. He is worthy of our trust, to his promise of discipline, to his promise of blessings. God's word can always be counted as dependable. I'm reminded in my to-do today is, Father, help me to see the things that I hold on to that cause me to sin against you. And help me to give them up to you and follow you faithfully, follow you only. That when I'm called on to do something, that I do it fully and completely, where I can be found faithful before God. Just words to think on as we end another week. Hope you have a great weekend, and I will see you again Monday as we continue our journey through the Word.